This year's NBA season was one of the craziest years that I can remember. But it wasn't just the heated moments and all of the unforgettable memes that we saw from throughout the season. To me, it was really the off court drama and the off to the side of the court drama, I guess you could say, that made last season unlike any other.
Breaking news, Kyrie Irving has demanded a trade just 6 days ahead of the trade deadline. Now,
But for me personally, just sitting in the seat today, I just know I want to be places where I'm celebrated and not just tolerated or just, kind of dealt with in a way that doesn't make me feel respected. And there were times throughout this process when I was in Brooklyn where I felt very disrespected, and my talent, I work extremely hard at what I do. No one ever talks about my work ethic, though. Everyone talks about what I'm doing off the floor. So I just want to change that narrative, write my own story, and just continue to prepare in the gym.
What does this all now mean for Kevin Durant's future in Brooklyn?
Breaking news into HQ in a mammoth trade from the NBA. Kevin Durant heading out of Brooklyn. Durant dealt to the Phoenix Suns just days after the Nets dealt Kyrie Irving.
So with that, the Brooklyn Nets fallout was officially complete. But the two superstars had much different experiences in each of their new homes. For Kyrie, it was a struggle to play alongside Luka in their first year together. After starting 23-19, the Mavericks would go on to lose 26 of their final 41 games after trading for Kyrie. They fell out of the Western Conference play-in tournament during the last week of the season and finished 6 games below 500. But I'm not ready to write off the Luka and Kyrie experiment just yet. I think that you just need to give these two guys more time to play together and they'll find a way to have success. Dallas also had a really productive off-season this summer. In addition to re-signing Kyrie to a 3-year deal, they also drafted Derek Lively out of Duke and made a sign-and-trade deal for Grant Williams from Boston. With their roster and their experience, I would really be surprised not to see this team back in the playoffs next year. But let's talk about the Phoenix Suns, because if you don't remember, this was a trade that spun the NBA world on its head. And you got to remember that the Suns were a team that won 60 games and made it all the way to the NBA Finals in 2021. So if adding a player like KD onto a roster that's done something like that sounds a little bit familiar, it probably should. There was also this crazy moment when everyone in the NBA world simultaneously found out who the owner of the Phoenix Suns was. It all started when Nikola Jokic blocked this shot from DeAndre Ayton and went to go retrieve the ball from the first row of fans. And as luck would have it, the ball landed right in the arms of Phoenix Suns owner Matt Ishbia. Joker goes to grab the ball back from him, but Ishbia keeps a firm grip on that thing and we get a tie-up. But seriously, what is Matt Ishbia doing here? You can see that Joker doesn't take too kindly to it, gives him a bit of a stare down, and then, all of a sudden, here we go. This really was a crazy moment to watch play out in live action. I can't remember any other instance where an NBA owner got involved with a player in the middle of the game on the court. The fact that it happened during the playoffs made the stakes even higher, and when asked about whether or not Joker thought there was going to be a suspension or some other punishment coming from the NBA, he simply said,
"Why?"
Ultimately, the beef was squashed ahead of the next game in the series when Joker gave this little ball toss to Ishbia pregame. Although Nikola was fined $25,000 for the courtside incident, I think he still came out on top in the end. But that wasn't the only crazy moment we saw happen in Phoenix during the playoffs. Yeah, you knew we couldn't make it through this whole video without talking about Brody. As a guy who's known for his antics, it really wasn't surprising to see Russ get into it with another fan. And there's definitely no question that the media paints him out to be someone that he's not in a lot of cases. But I was really disappointed with what I saw from Russ in this specific situation. When it comes to the amount of access that fans have to NBA players, the league is really unlike any other professional sports league in the biz. I mean, sitting courtside is not the same as going to an NFL stadium and sitting in the front row. It's not the same as going to an MLB stadium and sitting in the front row. My first question has to do with why is this interaction even allowed to happen in the first place? Russ appears to be walking through some concession / fan shop area before the game. I highly doubt that this is connected to the tunnel that leads from the locker room to the court. And it really is just a confusing situation as to why Russ is in the same area as all of these fans. Whatever the reason, to me, Westbrook just has to know better and has to know not to sort of take the bait in this situation. And I'm not saying that the Suns fan was necessarily right and that Russ was necessarily wrong. They were both wrong. But with a young fan sitting right in front of you, it's just not a good look to be heard saying, "Hey, watch your mouth, motherfucker, watch your mouth." The next moment we got to talk about is one that I still can't believe actually happened. That right there is NFL Hall of Famer and sports talk show host Shannon Sharpe. And this was the moment that he tried to fight the Memphis Grizzlies' entire roster. But this altercation was pretty much all bark and no bite. It got started when Dylan Brooks and Shannon exchanged some nice pleasantries with each other. Then Ja came over and said, once Ja walked over, Steven Adams had to get involved and protect his superstar as we've seen him do in the past. But he didn't have to just blatantly manhandle this poor assistant coach in the way that he did. The guy is just trying to keep the peace in all of this. And speaking of keeping the peace, where is Crypto.com Arena's security in this situation? Why is Ja Morant's dad allowed to walk clear across the court and have to be restrained by an NBA referee? I know it's in an NBA official's job description to control the game in all aspects, but isn't this taking it a little bit too far? After the game, Shannon and T. Morant were seen dapping each other up, and like Ishbia and Joker, apparently squashed their beef as well. Like I said, this is really just a case of smoke and mirrors and a situation where a couple of egos got in the way of something much larger than themselves. But the number one craziest moment from last season had to be when LeBron James surpassed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to take sole possession of the NBA's all-time scoring record. And this was truly a moment that was over 20 years in the making. From having his face slapped on the cover of Sports Illustrated at just age 16, to being labeled a bust if his career amounted to anything short of the NBA Hall of Fame, LeBron James has never been a stranger to great expectations. And there were probably a lot of people who expected him to break this record. But there's nobody else that could have made the same sacrifices, put in the same amount of work, and shown the same level of dedication over an entire 23-year career than LeBron James. And for him not to just have this moment, but to also be able to share it with his family was like watching something out of a storybook. And my favorite part about this story was that LeBron broke the record in the same dominating fashion that he's exemplified throughout his entire career.
Right here, 16.8 points a quarter. Go ahead and get it. Go ahead and get it. I'll get it. Yep.